video, and a lot of today's events that's happening in Washington, D.C. Whether you agree with what's happening in Washington, D.C. or don't agree with what's happening in Washington, D.C. today, it's happening in Washington, D.C. today. So, there ain't nothing that any of y'all or I can do about it. But anyways, for those of y'all that haven't watched my video about how to found and organize a militia, please check that out. Pause this video, go check that one out, then come back to this one. But for those of y'all that are already grouped up, you know, some of you have been thinking about, well, I am part of a group, we just started out, or maybe those of y'all that have been in a group for quite a few years, you know, are sitting there just kind of thinking, you know, we have meetings, we talk about stuff, but, you know, we like to really do some actual training. So, in order to train, you don't necessarily just have to go mag dump rounds downrange. I suspect that most of you watching this video have probably shot guns before, probably done some marksmanship training before. All that's kind of old news right by now. But actually trying to figure out new things to do, whether they're at your meetings or separate training days, here's a few ideas on that. So my big one is medical. A lot of y'all, you know, like to gear up and shoot guns, and that's all fine and dandy. But I personally believe I'm of the belief, I guess you could say, that if you have the ability to make holes in people, you also need to have the ability to patch holes in people. And some of y'all are saying, oh, well, Red, you know, I'm a rifleman. You know, I don't want to worry about being a medic or anything like that. Well, the U.S. military, and specifically the combat arms subsect of the military, disagrees with you, because they personally believe that everyone needs to have at least a little bit of medical training. And on top of that, to bridge the gap between just first aid training and the medics and corpsmen out there, they want 1 in every 3 members of their combat arms, meaning infantry, artillery, cavalry, those groups, to have what's called combat lifesavers, which is basically a bridge between this basic first aid and then the medic. Okay, and that's going to involve the ability to put tourniquets on, the ability to put IVs in, the ability to put chest seals on, the ability to splint broken bones, stuff like that. I believe every single militiaman, so not 1 in 3, but every single militiaman needs to have such knowledge. They all need to have IFAKs, so you need to have an IFAK, and you need to have the ability to use it. So, on top of that, there needs to be a specific divide in thinking when it comes to what strategy is versus what tactics are. Those are 2 different things. So I believe in meetings, your regular monthly meetings, whether they're scheduled meetings or impromptu meetings or whatever, those are the days when you discuss strategy. So what do I mean by strategy? Strategy is just ideas, plans, and contingencies. You know, if something pops off, this is what my family is going to do. You know, and discuss those things with your fellow group members or team members and decide, okay, we can meet over here. We can bring these things and you can bring these things. And, you know, for some groups it may make more sense, rather than everybody bring a crap ton of ammunition, a crap ton of medical stuff, a crap ton of food, blah, blah. It may make more sense to just specify, okay, you're going to be in charge of food, you're going to be in charge of shelter, meaning we're all going to go to your house and you're in charge of sheltering us in place. So you need to have enough sleeping bags for us. You need to have enough bunks for us. You know, whatever. You need to be in charge of ammunition. So you need to have, not necessarily purchase all the ammunition for us, but you need to garner the ammunition from all of us for all the weapons that we might be using. Say, for example, you have Joe over here, and he's in charge of ammunition for the other 4 guys in his group, okay? So he's not necessarily in charge of going out and buying all that ammunition, but he needs to have the ability to store and move that ammunition. So it needs to be in ammo cans or totes or in a specific trailer or whatever, and he is in charge of basically being the ammunition carrier. Okay, just stuff like that. That's strategy. Tactics, on the other hand, is ways to achieve those goals. So, say for example, your strategy is, if something pops off, we're going to all meet at various rally points. So, these two guys are going to meet at this guy's house, and these two guys are going to meet at this guy's house, and these two guys are going to meet at this guy's house, and then there's only going to be 3 cars that show up at the final location or whatever. Okay, those are tactics. Okay, and on top of that, how you move, whether you're going to move in convoy, whether you're going to move separately using separate roads. If something happens where somebody gets stopped and they radio or call for help or whatever, how those vehicles move in conjunction with each other, those are all tactics. Those are all things that the group needs to be aware of and how they handle those things. And at a later time, I may produce a video on moving as a convoy. But I mean, there's plenty of YouTube videos about that already. So let's see. Also, room and street clearing. So, moving down a hallway and inside houses, you move differently than if you're in the open street. The open street, you use leapfrogging. I'm up, they see me, I'm down, stuff like that. Whereas if you're moving inside a building, you're a lot more closer together. And in most places nowadays in 21st century that teach room clearing, it's all about contact and being in contact with the guy in front of you and the guy behind you being in contact with you. That's why in the U.S. military, for example, they teach standing in line, nut to butt. First off, that saves a lot of room when you're standing in line. But the second part of that is building that mentality in your head when you're stacked up with someone that you need to be in contact with him. That way, if the guy in front of you, if he sees something, then that you can't necessarily see, he's going to kind of move and get out of the way of whatever that is, and you'll be able to feel his movements. Whereas if you're standing, a few steps behind him, he may see something coming and jerk out of the way, and you're just standing there with your dick in your hand, not knowing what the heck's going on. That's why moving in a building, in a house, or in a hallway, in a room, whatever, you need to really stay in contact with one another. Let's see. The big thing is that you need to decide for your group is what's your philosophy of use. And this is something that I talked about in the previous video about organizing groups and founding groups. Is your group needs to be on the same page when it comes to philosophy of use of that group. Is your group a self-defense group? Is it purely just for protecting a homestead, and if something pops off, everybody's going to all run to that homestead, and that's going to be your base of operations? Or is your group more something where, like for what's going on right now, Washington D.C., is your group more for mass protests, going out? Is it for providing medical aid to downed protesters that either say law enforcement attacked or another faction attacked? And this video that I'm making isn't necessarily just for conservative groups. There's conservative groups out there, libertarian groups, anarchist groups, liberal groups. Even though I may not necessarily agree with you, you're welcome to use this information too. You really need to iron out what your philosophy of use is for your group, because what's the point of going 6 months to a year to a couple of years with a group, and then when something pops off, everyone just scatters like roaches because nobody agrees on what the group's philosophy is even supposed to be. Sure, groups are great for getting training and stuff like I'm already talking about, where what's the difference between strategy and tactics and stuff. That's awesome, but everyone really needs to be on the same page with what's the whole point of even being in the group? And once everybody's on the same page, and once everybody starts showing up to meetings, and you get that participation, then you can move on to training. And training, of course, is what's the most fun about the whole thing. So, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you that are viewing this. I appreciate each and every one of you that are subscribed to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to drop those in the comments. Thanks.